to say that the documents that were over-redacted that came back. This is the reality. The law clerk's office never got a chance to do the redaction. In fact, the information they got was already redacted. And given that they did not have a chance to see the original unredacted documents, they were unable to provide the information.
Well, the Liberals are trying to stonewall again paperwork, and they're trying to heavily redact paperwork that shouldn't have been redacted prior to going to the legal office. Now, it's a little bit complicated, but you'll get it in the end. Watch this.
The comment on imagine names and public figures were to be released. Quite honestly, that's why we are public figures for that purpose. The Minister of Health has a tremendous responsibility in making sure that she is accountable to Canadians and to quite frankly the opposition in this case, and that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. The motions that Mr. Fisher references were apparently agreements made offline. I certainly wasn't privy to any of those being asked of us here at HESA. Means we don't have to do that. Nobody has approached me to make any of these sorts of deals offline either. So Mr. Fisher, they're not necessarily pertain to here. I simply implore the committee. We've worked extremely well together. We've heard of a lot of very, very important testimony. In light of everything that we've heard and the consistent just lack of preparedness and readiness for this pandemic, I think Canadians would appreciate the ability to know that this government has perhaps learned lessons, is looking forward to implementing certain things that maybe weren't in place from before, and that's fine. We want to make sure that we have those as part of our report, so that can then become a lessons learned for the next government, any other potential pandemics. And there's no need most times for these government members to defend the government, but particularly in light of the WE scandal that we saw, there really isn't any reason to stand and try to protect this government. There's all the reasons why transparency should be even more important today. So again, I'll leave my comments there, Mr. Chair, but I implore the members to reconsider. Thinking there's the opportunity in front of you to be able to stand tall and really promote transparency here at this committee, where we can all do that together in a nonpartisan way. But certainly that would begin with withdrawal of this type of motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is a pretty good MP General. Like he said, he thought, hey, this is great. We've worked together up to now. Well, now, since it seems that he kind of alluded to, since this WE scandal came about, they're attempting to block information coming to this committee. And it's all Liberals on one side and Conservatives, NDP on the other block, I imagine, too. Now watch this.
Ms. Van Bynen, we're going now to Ms. Jansen. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think I'm a bit mind-boggled by the constant talk about privacy. When we need to understand, Canadians are scared. Canadians are looking to their public officials for good leadership based on good science. Well, how can we get the good science if we're going to be told that there's a lot of privacy that has to be upheld? I mean, if someone's made a mistake, we definitely need to know. And how are we going to know if we're all of a sudden talking, privacy being more important? If there's information, we need to put it on the table so that, for instance, if Canadians aren't wearing masks because, and they aren't, let's face it, when you go out into town, they're not wearing masks. We need to understand what was the information that she got. Lay it all out on the table so Canadians can really see why suddenly now masks work. It's so important. And to suggest that privacy is suddenly of top priority, Canadians are scared and Canadians aren't wearing masks. Privacy needs to take a second place right now, and we need to look at the numbers. If we actually want people to consider her new advice, we are going to have to lay out the information so that nothing is hidden. It's very important. And I think that if we're going to look at this from a nonpartisan perspective, Canadians will respect what this committee is doing. If we can't lay the information out on the line, Canadians are going to continue to not wear masks and do what they're being asked to do, which will, as we know, have its regular effect, which is we're going to have more people get sick. So I'm begging you, we need to make sure we have all the information. We are completely transparent with Canadians. Otherwise, this looks just like some kind of political theater yet again, and Canadians' lives are on the line.
Thank you, Ms. Jansen. Mr. Fisher, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Matt talked about this committee working very well together, and he's right. This committee has worked well together. In fact, I think if you look back on most of the motions that have come up through this committee, they've almost been, for the most part, unanimous. But we also have for the first time ever, a really good relationship between the provinces, the territories, and the federal government because of the importance of this pandemic and the importance of working together. And I'm quite proud of the way the provinces, territories, and the federal government have worked. Just like within the House of Commons, I'm quite proud of the fact that the opposition parties and the government have all worked well together, and parties have come up with great suggestions, and government has enacted those great suggestions. So I don't want to see that interfere with what we're talking about here today. The thing we want to make sure is that we get all of the information that we are seeking as a committee, but that we also protect the privacy of Canadians. That's what's important. And MP Kwan said it very, very well. Let's think of, and I mean, I can't even imagine the examples, but let's think about.
Now, this is excellent work. MP Fisher, that Liberal, just brought up this NDP Kwan as citing for information, and she turns back, politely smashes down what he says and disregards it. Excellent work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to put this on the record, addressing Mr. MP Fisher's point of view, to say that the documents that were over-redacted that came back, this is the reality. The law clerk's office never got a chance to do the redaction. In fact, the information they got was already redacted. And given that they did not have a chance to see the original unredacted documents, they were unable to provide the information. That's why it was over-redacted, exactly to the point that Mr. Fisher is raising, MP Fisher is raising, that this motion before us, I believe, will result in a situation where the information that the committee is seeking would be over-redacted. Let me just put this on the public record of what the law clerk's office had provided related to this issue. The government actually didn't allow the law clerk to do the redaction in response to the February 26 motion. That is why it's over-redacted, so I want to be clear about that. And in that letter from the law clerk's office on this subject, they said, quote, upon reception of the documents on March 15th, 2020, you provided them to my office so that we could make the necessary redactions to protect the privacy of Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and public servants as contemplated by the production order. However, as mentioned above, the documents had already been redacted by the respective departments. As my office has not been given the opportunity to see the unredacted information, we are unable to confirm or adopt those redactions. My office did make one additional redaction to the documents regarding a public servant. At a meeting with my office on March 10th, 2020, representatives of the departments had expressed concerns about providing the committee or to my office unredacted information that would, in their view, fall under statutory disclosure exemptions. During that meeting, we reminded the government officials that the House's and its committee's powers to order the production of records is absolute and unfettered, as it constitutes a constitutional parliamentary privilege that supersedes statutory obligations. We add that the House and its committees are the appropriate authority to determine whether any reasons for withholding the documents should be accepted or not, and that it was for the committee to determine whether it was prepared to accept any proposed measures that would prevent the disclosure of sensitive information for any reason.